Hey, what's up, YouTube? I know it's been a long time since I've made a video, and I apologize about that. I kind of got out of it for a little bit, but now I'm back, and I have a lot of info. I've been hearing that everybody's talking about how the Bengals are trash, which, you know what? As a Bengals fan, I respect that because we have been trash the last 3 years. But I'm getting a really, really, really strong vibe about this season coming up because, and this is probably going to be a much longer video, but if you think about it, we got rid of our entire coaching staff, right? We brought in a new coaching staff, and not that much NFL experience, a lot of college experience. But the thing is, you bring in a pretty damn solid quarterbacks coach. He was Jared Goff's quarterback coach last year, and Zach Taylor, all right? And Jared Goff had his career year, and they went to the Super Bowl, and he was under Coach Zach Taylor worked for Sean McVay, who is a hell of a coach. And Zach Taylor is also 36 years old now, and which means he's a young head coach. All right, and we got this whole new coaching staff, a solid offensive coordinator, a solid defensive coordinator, both guys who have been around the league for a long time. And we got a bunch of new position coaches. We kept our special teams coordinator, who is one of the top 10 special teams coordinators or whatever in the league. And people have been saying that we haven't really done that much in the draft. All right, and in the offseason, and I want to talk about that. So in the offseason, we lost Vontaze Burfict, which we needed to get rid of him. He's a hell of a football player. No, don't get me wrong, but he just is mentally unstable, it looks like. He just can't control himself. But, when he's healthy, he does have really good seasons. He's a hell of a linebacker. He's vicious. But, we don't need him anymore. He's not a positive football player, and you want a team that's stable. All right? And then we lost Tyler Croft, and I think those are really the only two major losses they're not even major. And linebacker core is a concern, but I'll get into that in a minute. Well, later. And then we signed B.J. Webb, who was a New York Giants corner. He's in his older years. I think he just turned 30, but he's a pretty solid corner. And what I've been hearing from the OTAs is that he's been pretty solid in our defense, and he's a pretty solid corner. And then we also we haven't picked up anybody else that I know of. No, we did. We picked up John Miller, the guard out of Buffalo. He was a second-round pick back in 2014, and he's 26 years old. And I actually really like that because he's a solid guard. He has good feet. He's solid. He's very powerful. I watched some of his film, and once he locks his hands on you, he has a good punch. He shuts nose tackles and defensive tackles down. He shuts them down, and it's impressive. And he's also a very solid run blocker. He gets to the next level smoothly. He knows how to get out in open space. I've noticed him miss a couple of linebackers out in open space, but he's a solid offensive lineman, and as a second-round pick, that's good. We took him in for free agency and took him to a 3-year contract. Same thing with B.W. Webb. He gets a 3-year contract too. And then you also look at the draft, all right? So those are the two major guys that you notice. We took Isaiah Wynn, who is an edge out of the New York Giants. He's a pretty solid guy, but I think the only reason we signed him is because he's good in special teams and making plays. He's got some pretty freakish athleticism. And then you look at the draft, all right? So the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers jumped in front of us to take the pick that they knew we were going to take, which was Devin Bush. But I'm starting to feel like the Bengals weren't really planning on taking Devin Bush, and that we were planning on taking Jonah Williams, who was one hell of a tackle. He was ranked the number one pass block. No, his number 2 pass block tackle or number 2 run block tackle. No, number 1, something like that. But he was ranked the number 1 tackle in the NFL draft. In my opinion, he was the best offensive lineman in the NFL draft. He's like that, okay? And he's a very good lineman. It's just, and people always question his arms are shorter. But here's the thing. I watched his film, and he's a damn good lineman. He has quick, light feet. He's 6'4", 6'5", 302 pounds. He's got good athleticism. He's very powerful at the point of attack. He's got a great kick, great smooth, fast feet. He has a great punch, and he always hits. He's very powerful. And if you're if you're an offensive tackle in college and you've got shorter arms and you struggle to get, you're powerful but you struggle to get your hands in proper placement, that's a concern. But this guy's not like that. He punches the perfect spots every time. He goes into the inside shoulder and the outside every single play. And he had like over 500 pass block snaps and he allowed 0 sacks and only like 6 pressures. That's insane for a guy who has short arms apparently. I think he can play tackle at the next level. That's insane. And plus, he played for Alabama, which means he blocked all the best, like the most competition in the SEC. And in other divisions. He's a hell of a tackle, and he admires his favorite player is Joe Thomas, and he got very similar traits to Joe Thomas. He's not as big, but he's just as dominant, if not more. So I mean, think about it. So, and then we took Drew Sample in the second round, which everybody doesn't agree with, but I do. And let me tell you why. All right, you watch his film. He was ranked the number 1 run and pass blocking tight end in college football coming out of Washington. All right, which it's good, but usually if you're going to take a tight end in the first or second round, you expect him to be a do-it-all tight end, and he is a do-it-all tight end. One thing I noticed is he's a good route runner. He's big, 6'5", 250. And the thing is their quarterback likes to they ran a spread offense, all right. So therefore, they're having the wide receivers go deep on a lot of the plays because they rely on their offensive line to buy time for the quarterback. So their quarterback in all the film I noticed, he always was going deep. He threw a lot of deep passes, and he did throw it to Drew Sample a lot. And Drew Sample caught all the balls. He has good hands, and he didn't have like the best records, but if you look at a guy like George Kittle, he was very similar in college football, and not even nearly as good as a pass blocker. He was a later draft pick, like 4th or 5th round. And look what he did last season. He had over 1,000 yards receiving. So who said that Drew Sample can't be that guy? And plus, we got Tyler Eifert on a 1-year contract, who, if he stays healthy, he's one of the most deadly vertical threat tight ends in the NFL. And then we also brought back C.J. Uzomah, who's a great tight end also. So you look at those 3, and that's pretty scary in my mind. All right, and then in the third round we took Jermaine Pratt, who's a hell of a linebacker. Came out of a smaller college, and he converted from a safety to a linebacker. So he's got that hybrid linebacker ability. The only concern about him, everything else is solid about him, but the only concern is he only played 1 year in college at linebacker. So will he be able to go to that next level and be able to be a play caller and be able to understand it because he only has 1 year of experience at college at linebacker. So that's the only concern, but hopefully that goes well. And in the fourth round we traded up to get Ryan Finley, quarterback out of NC State. I like Ryan Finley. He's got very similar traits to Jared Goff, I noticed. And because if you watch Jared Goff, they both have similar traits. They're both West Coast quarterbacks. And so is Andy Dalton. And Zach Taylor's building a scheme around Andy Dalton and that Marvin Lewis never done. He had more of that pro-style, scheme around Andy Dalton. And Zach Taylor's building that West Coast. Anyway, I need to get out of that. What I'm saying is that Ryan Finley is a good quarterback, and he was ranked one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the draft, all right? He's a solid quarterback, and could he be Andy Dalton's successor? I don't know. He could be, but that's something we'll have to look forward to the preseason. But as far as we all know, Andy Dalton is our guy, all right? Now, later in the fourth round, we took Michael Jordan. He's a center/guard out of Ohio State. I'm okay with the pick. I mean, he was a pretty solid pick, and that's where he was supposed to go. But one thing I noticed about his film is he's powerful. He's a powerful lineman. He's big, 6'6", 312. So that's a big lineman. That's a big center. But, I'd more expect him to be a guard. And I kind of question him at tackle, but he does not. He's slower with his feet, and he's got kind of lazy hands. Like, he lacks a big dominant punch. Like, I noticed that he's very powerful, and if he wanted to, he could be dominant in this league. Because he has very long arms. He's got very good size for an offensive lineman. And if he wanted to, he can knock the hell out of defensive linemen, knock them off their feet and pancake them, put them on the ground. Like, this guy's powerful. He's just lazy with his hands. And he's okay in open space. Like, he's good against the second level, covering up linebackers, assist blocking. He's good at all that. It's just if he was more powerful with his hands, he'd create more space. I haven't really watched that much film on him, but that's all I've noticed so far. And in the fifth round we took I forgot. We took 2 running backs, and we also took another linebacker. 2 dominant running backs. Anderson. Then we also took a defensive tackle. Riddle Wren. I forgot what college he came from. Damn, I wish I had like one of them papers that gave me all like the draft picks. And because then it'd come right off my mind because I've already studied all these guys. Riddle Wren was also taken in the 4th round. We had 3 4th round picks. And he's kind of a freakish lineman. He's 6'5", 315 pounds. He's a DT, but he could play nose tackle. I mean, he did do a lot of that in college. I think he also came out of NC State with our new quarterback, Ryan Finley. But Riddle Wren, it's kind of a cringy name to me. But if you watch his film, he never showed true potential. But he's got freakish athleticism, and I noticed that about him. And like if our defensive coaches can get, if Zach Taylor can get this shit out of him, he could be a freakish guy, And also hearing that we're trying to target Jared McCoy, and you already have Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap and Carl Lawson and Sam Hubbard, and you've got some young freakish athletes on your defensive line. That's scary to think about, and for you other teams, you better be figuring out a way to stop that. And then I haven't really watched film on these running backs, but all I heard is that they were steals because injuries was one of the things that held them back, but they were like rushing leaders in their divisions. And we took not Jermaine Pratt, but we took another linebacker out of Auburn. I forgot his name, but I didn't watch any film on him either, so I can't really say much. All I heard is he just got held back by injuries. All right. Now, if you think about it, back in 2015, Andy Dalton had his career year. All right, he was going off before he got injured. And he had one of the top 10 offensive lines in the NFL, and he also had a ton of weapons. And Tyler Eifert, AJ Green, Mohamed Sanu, and another guy. But we went 8-0 straight, all right? And then we were basically guaranteed to go to the playoffs. And then Andy Dalton got injured. But anyway, we had a dominant defense and a dominant offense. And it still wasn't really built around Andy Dalton. And that's what's confusing. You can't call Andy Dalton a bad quarterback if you look at what he's done for this team. Yes, he's 0-5 in the playoffs, all right? But that's not how I see it, all right? He may have sucked in the playoffs, yes. But if you look at it, a coach and a player's relationship really matters. And it really seemed like Andy Dalton and Marvin Lewis never had a good connection. Now, Hugh Jackson and Andy Dalton were like the perfect couple, all right? Because in 2015, that was like a beautiful marriage. But anyway, now that we're building a scheme around Andy Dalton and it's getting all built around him and Joe Mixon and AJ Green and Tyler Boyd, and not to mention Tyler Boyd's a freaking amazing wide receiver, and he was really, really underestimated. And he's somebody to watch. And now that you're building that, I'm scared. All right? As a fan of the Bengals, I am really scared. And nobody talks about us at all. And that's also really good because that means that we're under the radar. And that means that there's less pressure on us. And I feel like we're going to break out this division. You may have the Cleveland Browns, but I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to be that good. Because they're getting so much attention, and that can be stressful. That can be pressurous. And just because you bring in all these good players don't mean you're going to be good. Just because you have a freakish... the Bengals have always had a freakish, very, very athletic, very special roster, but they never were that successful with it. And that could be the same way with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I am kind of worried about them, and I see the Pittsburgh Steelers not being that good, and I also see the Baltimore Ravens not being that good. I see the division being between the Cleveland Browns and Bengals, all right? I think the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win the division. And let me explain why. You can hate on me as much as you want in the comments, but you're gonna change your mind after you hear this, all right? So I'm gonna start with the offensive line, and with a good offensive line, Andy Dalton has always been successful. All right. So at left tackle, we're clearly gonna be putting Jonah Williams there, and we already had Cordy Glenn, who is a pretty damn good tackle. All right, but we're gonna be putting Jonah Williams there. It looks like, in my opinion, you put Cordy Glenn at right tackle. All right, and he can do that. He'd probably be a pretty damn good right tackle. He's big, 6'6", 345. He's a big, dominant player. Physical, big punch, knocks defenders off their feet. He shuts you down. You bull rush his ass, and as soon as he gets his hands on you, you just get stopped. He stalls you. It's amazing to watch him play. I watched his film. He's a dominant player when he's healthy. Now, you talk about Now you got your tackles set aside. Those are two pretty damn good looking tackles, right and left, all right? Now, left guard, Clint Bowling. Nobody talks about Clint Bowling, and he's been a pretty damn dominant left guard in the NFL for a long time now. He hasn't been to the Pro Bowl, but he's been a very solid guard. And then we also have our another first round pick from last year, and Billy Price, who had a bad rookie year because he was injured for most of it. But then in the end of the season, he came out and he was dominant. He was ranked one of the top 5 centers according to Pro Football Focus in the last 5 games of the season. He went off. At right guard, John Miller, who was a second-round pick out of not Maryland, Louisville in 2014. Look at that O-line. That's scary. That's a scary offensive line to me. All right, and then you also have 3 dominant tight ends in C.J. Uzomah, Drew Sample, and Tyler Eifert. And then hopefully John Ross kind of gets that Tyreek Hill athleticism and speed. Hopefully John Ross can break out this year and Zach Taylor can bring it out of him, because Zach Taylor was also a wide receivers coach for the Los Angeles Rams. Hopefully he can bring dominance out of John Ross. So now you think about it. You got A.J. Green, when healthy, is one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. A.J. Green, all right? You got Tyler Boyd, who was one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL last year. You got John Ross. That's freaking scary. That's scary. Not to mention, but you have Joe Mixon, who I am still super pissed about not going to the Pro Bowl last year. He should have went to the Pro Bowl, guys. He should have went to the Pro Bowl. How are you going to put Philip Lindsay in the Pro Bowl and James Conner in the Pro Bowl? Philip Lindsay barely made it over 1,000 yards rushing. James Conner didn't even make it to 1,000 yards rushing. He almost had it. They both were okay in the pass game. Joe Mixon wasn't utilized the way he should have been. He only had 5 games that season. Not to mention he had a concussion during 2 games, all right? He started 14 games, and only 4 or 5 of his games he had over 20 rushes. Only 5 of his games he had over 20 rushes. Barely made over 20 rushes. But let's see. Was one of the top 5 worst offensive lines in the NFL. But let's see. He still rushed for 1,100 yards. 1,100 yards. Tell me that's not good. 14 starts, only over 20 rushes in 5 of the games. 1,100 yards with a bad offensive line. Tell me that's not the most underrated running back in the NFL. Now give him a good offensive line and a scheme built around him and Andy Dalton. Tell me he's not going to go off. Tell me he's not going to go off. That's scary, guys. That's scary as hell. And then you think about it. So now you got that freaking freakish offensive line. I don't know what we're doing at fullback, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. But now you've got this freakish offense that looks scary. And then I'm hearing that we're doing all kinds of different formations, just like the Los Angeles Rams. So now you've got that. Let's go to defense. The only little bit of a concern at defense is linebacker. But you think about it. We drafted, last year we drafted, shit, I forget his name. That linebacker out of Texas. But we have Jermaine Pratt, who was also a third-round pick. And then you've got Preston Brown, who, is a hell of a linebacker in my opinion. You got your Mike linebacker, who is Preston Brown, your middle linebacker. I've got Sam. I gotta figure out his name. I'm gonna have to skip that, guys. I'm sorry. I've got Will. I've got our Will linebacker being Jermaine Pratt, weak linebacker. And then I've got our Sam, strong linebacker, being, what's his name out of Texas? Damn it, man. This is embarrassing. If you guys are Bengals fans, you know what I'm talking about. He's our starter, all right? If he was supposed to be a starter last year, but he couldn't keep up with the speed and, of the game. But hopefully he's got that. He's there this year. So now, that's your linebacker core, all right? So now you've got your defensive line, all right? So you've got Sam Hubbard and Carl Lawson at right end, RE. I'm hoping we go out and get Gerald McCoy. So I'm going to go ahead and we get Gerald McCoy, all right? I see us putting Geno Atkins at nose tackle. And then we put Gerald McCoy at defensive tackle. And then we have Carlos Dunlap at left end. That's a freakish defensive line, guys. That's a freakish defensive line. That's freakish. I'm scared. All right? And then at cornerback, all right? This is actually pretty freakish. I know I'm saying freakish a lot, but it's freakish. This roster is freakish. It's the most underrated roster in the NFL, all right? It is. It's just a fact, all right? Nobody talks about the Bengals. It's because of our history. But it gets me adrenaline talking about it. Alright, so now I get to the part. And you know what, guys? I'm also a football player. I play for my high school football team. So, I know what a very athletic team looks like and stuff like that. I'm not saying that I know it all. But I'm just saying, like, as a football player myself, I know more about the game. And it gives me more of an intel about it, And I'm just saying that defensive line and that defensive linebacker core already looks deadly. All right, so now let's get into cornerback. All right, so you got William Jackson, who's the most underrated corner in the NFL for a fact. All right, the last 2 seasons he started, he's one of the top 10 corners in pass coverage, and like he's a lockdown corner and like passes thrown to him. In all 4 career games he's played against Antonio Brown, he only allowed like 5 or 6 catches in 4 games. 4 whole games of coverage against one-on-one with Antonio Brown. That's freakish, guys. He shut down Antonio Brown in 4 games. He shut him down. And then, not to mention, you have Darqueze Dennard, who's an amazing corner also. And then you got Drake Kirkpatrick, who's he has his ups and downs. And then you also got B.W. Webb. And we've also got a lot of young corners breaking out. All right. So now you get into safety. I'm going to start out with strong safety, all right? You've got Sean Williams, who's a hell of a strong safety. He's a hell of a safety, period. Nobody talks about him either when he's really underrated. All right? Now let's go to free safety, who we should all know is Jesse Bates, all right? He was a second-round pick out of Wake Forest last year, and he was predicted to be a first-round pick, so we got to steal with him. And he was one of the top 10 free safeties in the NFL. He was like 6th or 5th in the league. And he is a monster, all right? He's all over the place, and I look forward to seeing him break out even more this year, all right? Kicker, you got Randy Bullock, and then puncher, you've got Kevin Huber. That's a pretty good core for kicker and puncher, all right? Now take that whole roster and think about everything I just said, and tell me that's not non-athletic. Tell me that's not freakish. I'm scared, guys. I look forward to seeing this team play this year. Hoo-day. And I'll see you guys in the next video.